And while we do that, I'm going to try to shoot it over to Facebook too. Is it cold in Boston? What's the weather like? It's hot here.
It's cold in Boston now. I mean, we're in right now, but I mean, I think we're coming up on the 50s, which we're all pretty stoked on.
Long gig when I went in once a month to work with this giant staff of people. And the first part of the year was great. We hit March and I'm still freezing my butt off, right? So we hit March there in Chicago and it got to 45 or 50 degrees. And I couldn't understand why nobody, and these were adults, why nobody in the group could sit still, right? And when I finally let them go, because I was just having a hell of a time, and I hadn't had that problem before. I was having this hell of a time with people, just trying to get them to concentrate. So finally, we ended the day, ended a little bit early, and they literally cheered. And I had to ask somebody why later, and they said, because it's 50 degrees outside. You know, I'm from Arizona, man. I'm freezing every piece of my anatomy off, right? But they were 50 degrees. So they literally, these are sea level people. They literally go into the bathrooms and all of that stuff around there, and they come out wearing shorts. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. So you and your 50 degrees in Boston, congratulations. Good. All right, well, let's keep talking. Hey, folks, this is Sean Buvala from the Small Tooth Dog Publishing Group. We are glad you are here. This is number 2 of our series of live streams from the Tucson Festival of Books. Man, what a great time we're having. We're going to talk to you about what we're doing. But tonight, which is now going to be tomorrow, so, you know, it's recorded, right? We're going to talk to C.S. Fritz, Casey Fritz, about his work that he's done for us, with us, and also every aspect of his personal life as well. So that you know what we're going to be doing today, right now, you're going to be watching this this will be in the 10 a.m. slot. Later today at 1 p.m., Laura Packer and I will be talking about how the oral storytelling tradition can inform your writing. I'm very excited about this because Laura and I can just like turn the camera on and go. So we have a lot to say about how oral storytelling helps you as a writer. So we'll do that. Saturday, later today at 3 p.m. is a Kidlit panel with a variety of our authors who have done children's work. So it's a panel kind of talking through all of that. Tonight at 7 p.m., I'm going to do a workshop called So You Want to Publish a Book? What are your options these days, right, for getting a book out to the world? How has publishing changed? So we're going to do all that. And then tomorrow, there's also 3 events. The Sunday 10 a.m. panel with what have you learned on your publishing journey? I never know who's going to show to that workshop. So whoever's there, we're going to talk about publishing from the personal perspective. And then at noon on Sunday, I will be talking about how to leverage your book before you write it. We'll talk about that. And then Sunday night will be our panel on what's coming soon from the Small Tooth Dog Publishing Group. And one of the things we'll be talking about is a little book called Red Balloon from some obscure illustrator. Oh, there he is.
Oh, boy.
All right. Hey, world, please welcome C.S. Casey Fritz. Yay.
Hello.
Hey, Casey. Thanks for being with us.
I'm happy to be here. I think you gave an even extra preview of what's coming up because you said Red Balloon. Did you mean to say Red Balloon?
That's right. So it's going to be, so we're going to be previewing. So the last thing we do tomorrow, the last live stream tomorrow is talking about all the upcoming books.
Oh, awesome.
So,
cool.
So I've got
all right.
book. So I've got Red Balloon, which we're still working through.
Yep.
But we're pretty much in agreement on that one. And then I have other books of kind of body folktales.
Yeah. That's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, we got a lot. And then we have little books about the puppy dives under the ocean and sees starfish.
This is exciting.
We're excited. There's a lot of really exciting things happening right now. Yeah. Casey tells this story that he grew up on a farm in Oregon where he milked cows. Well, you know, To escape his terrible life milking cows, he was an artist and he would draw. He's been in Arizona, but now he's escaped to Boston. I'm very excited to have him on our team for the book that he's released with us. But also he's written such things like the Cottonmouth trilogy, Goodnight Tales, The Moon Man Cometh, Seekers, which is just a great book, and also Goodnight Classics. So, hey, man, thanks.
So happy to be here. No, I'm so happy.
We had you come in on 15 Pounds of Muscle and Bounce and Other Uncomfortable Norse Tales.
Yes.
Which was written by Harriet Cole. And then I was looking for someone who could do quirky without scaring away school principals.
Did we accomplish, you think?
Yes. There's only one piece of art that I'm still waiting to see what really happens on it, and I'm not going to tell people what it is. So it's not one of them that comes from tonight, that's sure. So, we have bios and stuff and people can read those in the books, but let's go in a different place. So what pulled you into the artwork besides natural affinity? What really kind of led you into being an artist? Talk about that kind of beginning part of your life.
Yeah, I part of that's, nature versus nurture, right? Like you're saying, there's the aspect of trying to escape endless chores. And so you doodle as a kid and you draw all over your folders and you graffiti all over your locker and you just kind of go through those phases. And then all of a sudden somebody says, hey, you're pretty good at this. And even when I was a young kid, I was always drawn to drawing darker things. And so I would add chainsaws to people's hands, like Army of Darkness, or tentacles to people's hands. And, I just kept getting told more and more, hey, this seems to be decent for you. This seems to be this. And I started winning some awards as kids, but nothing really happened with it. I wasn't a child. I wasn't some 10-year-old going, I'm going to grow up and be an artist. I didn't even know what that meant, and it wasn't a term of like a film director's an artist or an author's an artist. You just grew up and thought, there's no way I'm going to be Picasso's. Picasso's don't exist anymore. So I would say what drew me in definitely wasn't the idea of let me be an artist. What drew me in was this seems to be an escape. This was an escape of something, and I could create something that I want to see or I want to be a part of or I want to feel. And so that's what I would say drew me in, if that's your, to answer that exact question.
That's interesting because I hear that a lot. And the sense of taking yourself somewhere else, allowing yourself to escape a little bit, all of that. Because I'm not just a book publisher. My work comes from the oral storytelling tradition and very much a performance artist. Mm-hmm. And I think about those times when you're in a zone. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You get to that zone place and like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it's calling or comfortability or the uncomfortability of it all, but once you're in that spot of creation or creating, there's definitely a sense of home to it that I grew, because I do think there was a little bit of nomadic sense of my bio. And so when you got to a place where you're more in control, when everything else is out of control, like I can control this alone, I can put down here, then all of a sudden it's like, this is like, to use your words, this is where I want to be.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I like the nomadic imagery.
Yeah.
Of moving to a place. Like when I finally settled on, I knew mostly what I was going to be doing was folk tales and fairy tales from kind of a more darker place. When people hear I'm a storyteller, they're like, oh, libraries and schools. It's like, hell no. Do you remember that moment for you when you kind of went, oh, this is the place I want to be? Was there something connected with it? Was it just a random growing into it? Or was there like a time when you went, oh yeah, somebody recognized this? What was that about?
No, I do remember the moment where I said, this is more than just a hobby. And oddly enough, it wasn't as a child, it wasn't as a teenager. I was a full grown 24-year-old, 25-year-old man with 2 kids. And no joke, it happened the moment I read Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, if you've read Watchmen. So Watchmen, I sat and watched that, and it was so masterfully done artistically and storytelling. And I was blown away. You know, it was that realization that most people have going, oh my gosh, people are still getting paid for this. This is somebody's entire life. And I said, I want to do this. And then I got sucked into the world of drawing comics and trying to do that. I went to Joe Kubert school for a while, but I woke up, Watchmen woke me up in a completely new way that touched all the right points that needed to be touched for me. And it changed everything. But that was not that long ago, truly, that I read it. So that was, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, that I got nuts about doing art. I got nuts about illustrating.
So if your moments come in your 20s, what were you doing before then?
Just as a career?
Yeah.
I was a pastor at a church. So I was pastoring, and whatever that meant at that time.
Right. And that's something you and I both share. So how does because I've talked to you, this is not the first time you and I've been in a conversation, right?
Right.
But I want to kind of dig through this a little bit. So how does somebody go from church pastor, which people have an image about, to drawing some of the darker Watchmen noir stuff that you've put out? Is there a separation, or does that work together?
Well, there is a separation, sadly, but there shouldn't be a separation. There is a separation, but that's not the Bible's fault. That's not Jesus's fault. That's Christianity's fault as a religion or as a faith system. But that's definitely not God's fault. And I think I started to know that there was darkness and tragedy attached to what I believe. I believe in God. I follow Jesus and what the Bible says. And I know there's an extreme element of darkness attached to that, not in a celebratory way, but more in a reality way, and more in a way that's drawing out and accepting or understanding. And so I think Watchmen, or pick any of those guys, Frank Miller, Jim Lee, who any of these guys who, when I was getting into at that time and was kind of opening up to me, they were tapping into something that I found more spiritually aligned than some of the books I was reading on theology at the time. Going, these guys are actually closer theologically to reality than any of these other things, or even in the mainstream Christianity, which I could talk about all day.
which one day you and I will do that as an interview. I think what we've talked about in a possible collaboration in the future, it's all stuff we're talking about, is I look at things like the prophets in particular. And, we've painted the prophets as standing on a hill in golden robes and everyone listening with rapt attention. The prophets were crazy for the most part. That does not diminish their message. But they were crazy for the most part, and they were ignored for the most part. And when they weren't ignored, they got mad for someone paying attention. Job, right? Not Job. Jonah. Oh yeah, sure. So, and I know that's one of the reasons why when you first contacted me, I was like, this, because I looked at your art, right? And I thought, well, no, this guy's drawing religious stuff. But there was, and that was just on me. That was not you, it was me. But then I looked at it and I went, because I think art and spirituality are deeply, deeply connected. But
agreed.
I went and looked at your stuff and I was like, oh no, this isn't church. This isn't the Jesus industry. This isn't church in the traditional sense.
Right.
How did you get picked up by some of these very traditional publishers with the unique style you have?
And I was in LA for the last 10 years, pastoring out there as well, not only in Arizona. I went from Arizona to LA, and it's truly 100% who you know. And I wrote my first children's book. I thought it was decent enough. I was actually done with it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first one. There's something to it. And it had, I would have sacrificial gospel themes to it, but yet at the same time, it was painted in a very ungospel light, or a very, somebody would not say this is full Christianity or whatever. Right. So I just gave it to a buddy of mine, and my buddy's like, hey, can I give this to somebody else who I know in the industry? And I go, I don't know what that means. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from David C. Cook.
Wow.
So, and it really happened that fast, and it kind of happened overnight. And so I feel bad because I don't have the traditional, let's find an agent. Let me go through all the channels. Let me get, rejected and all those type of things. I've been rejected many times since, but my very first book, it was a very different story. But then I met some incredible people who then I continued to follow and work with all the way until today. And that's how I went from Cook to Nav Press to Tyndale and some of the other ones you're talking about. I kind of got sucked up in the whirlwind with just the right people. So there's no way I don't think I could get published today if I were to try to start over again. There's no way. I got in right at the right time.
As a publisher, I both agree with that. And also my pushback on that is not the world of publishing has changed significantly. And there's more of us who are the indie publishers, like the Small Tooth Dog Publishing Group. Right. There's more of us indie publishers. And I will assure you that not all of us require an agent. And some of us won't work with writers and illustrators who have an agent. Right. Because it adds a complication level and a lack of intimacy that I think indie publishing lets us do.
I agree with you. I agree with you so much to the point that years and years ago, I fired my agent.
Yep.
I agree now, and I totally understand where you're coming from. That actually, once you're in this and understand this, an agent in some respects, I'm going to say this very gently. For me, at least, my experience was pointless.
And I still respect that, because I work with people that are like that have huge companies with 100 people in their employ, and I get that. So I'm not in any way I'm not dismissing the role of agent, but I also know as an indie publisher, with a catalog of 25 books or whatever our actual catalog number is, that sometimes I need to work directly with an artist, and right. I think it makes it easier to discover that. But again, there is a place and a role for that.
Right.
But especially since we're really focused on the West Coast, because I found you because you were in Arizona. You sent me a letter when you came to Arizona, I think, and said, let's go forth and do this. When I put out a book called The O Antiphons, which is about the liturgical practice of the 8 days, the octave before Christmas, I put out a book that has very untraditional stories in it, but just has basically what Michelle illustrated it, and it's called scribble art, right? So it's not that. But in the book, it doesn't read anything like, oh, this is a book for Advent. So people would say, this isn't a devotional, as if that's the only book you can put out.
Right.
So do you remember getting pushback on some of the stuff that you did?
Tons.
Like what?
Well, you go see any of my reviews on Amazon for any of my books, and majority of the stuff you'll see is it's too scary. So I was warned constantly about drawing darker elements. I was warned constantly about darker elements in my thing, and my entire pushback was, what are you talking about? Evil, sin, sacrifice, darkness, all this stuff exists. I'm trying to show the light. You can only show the light by exposing the darkness. So that was the biggest thing, is taking things too far, which I love to live on the polars. So I do love to push things as far as they can possibly go. I know that sometimes I have to be reined in, but yes, so that was always my issue, is I do that. And then my second thing I get pushback from publishers on is I probably go far too into the weeds of, for lack of better words, and it's going to make me sound like a pompous idiot, but you'll understand, is I tried to be poetic. I love 8 pages describing the color of a leaf. I love that. Children's books, not so much the place to do 8 pages describing the color of a leaf. So so I was constantly edited down. And so if I could do the darkness poetic type, marriage, that was my thing. So those are the main things I got pushback on, is we're going too far and rein it in. But my whole goal with publishing in general, just so you know, is I would push everything out so that somebody can rein it in, and I would get as much meat as I possibly could.
Oh, well, we did that.
Yeah.
I mean, we absolutely, let Let me put the pictures back up that we had here. We absolutely went through that exercise.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still like this picture right here with "Got to Get Up the Doverfell," which is the animals being roasted.
Yep.
I'm still like, who's gonna come at the publisher side of me, the safer publisher side who's got to sell books to pay for all this stuff, is like, oh. And I remember talking to you about this one. I was like, what are we gonna do with this?
Well, that was the one I do remember as far as illustration goes. You had the most trepidation with,
Yeah,
which always shocked me because literally next to it is a decapitated cat.
I know.
But that one shocked me, and it was probably, at least in my opinion, I love the fox's expression. I know we went round and round on other things, but that wasn't because of what concerns, you know. But yeah, I was always taken back to this one bothered you the most. But I guess it's the two main characters being roasted. So
Yeah, I think so. And you know, my image is, so you know, our focus for 15 pounds of muscle and bounce is, you know, your average fifth grader who doesn't need picture books anymore, but really isn't ready for YA.
Yeah.
And you know, so they leave this around, and it's like, all right, are they going to show it to you know, 5-year-old brothers and sisters with, you know, ducks being roasted? And you know, I know the argument. I know the whole argument. It's like, well, you know, KFC is roasted animals. I mean, I get all that. I get it. McDonald's is cows we're eating. I get all that.
Yeah.
But there's something about this one that really, like the decapitated cat, no sweat. Part of it is because for a small child, they don't understand that picture. A small child won't get that.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
But the other one with the fire and stuff, I almost had you flip that around. I almost had you flip around so that we were looking at, the camera was looking at the back of the fox with the glow of fire around him. So we were seeing the other side of this picture.
Which could have been cool.
Right.
You know, I think
that's where we wanted to go. Yeah. Go
I will say this. My opinion about this one is not, I think our biggest issue with this one, correct me if I'm wrong, is not the illustrations of the animals being roasted. It's the deviousness in the fox's eyes of what he's doing to the animals that's so protruding, of lack of better words, evil. The eyes just say it. The eyes say it, and it makes you uncomfortable because the animals roasting at the end of the world, they kind of look plastic as it is, but the fox looks so alive, and how he wants to treat them, it makes you uncomfortable. That's at least what makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. When on our website, so for this book, it's Muscle and Bounce is where the website, muscleandbounce.com is where the website is for this. This is one of the pictures that I put on in our bookstore so that people could see some of the art in the book. I wanted them to see this one so that they can't say, I didn't know they were burning ducks. Well,
there you go.
I don't know. There's the part of me that wants to do the really cool, dark profit books with you is really okay with this picture, but the publisher side is like, and I think the jury is still going to be out on the knight and the horse, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Nope. Did I lose you?
No,
my camera stopped working.
I can hear you, but yeah, you're frozen on my end.
Well, that's so weird. I don't know. Well, we'll just talk for a minute then. So that'll be fine. Oh, I think I'm back. That's good.
Not yet on mine, but I can't see you, but it's fine. As long as you can see it, we're good.
It'll show up. My favorite picture that you did in this book is over here on the right with we don't call them rats in the book. They were creatures.
No. Yes.
But what I love about this, and I really want to invite people to pick this book up and see this, is what's in the eye of we'll call it rat. What's in the eye of the critter? What's in the eye of the creature? The reflection of the cat coming at it.
Yeah.
From Cat and the Cottager. And I thought that's that kind of detail that this was the picture when I saw it, I was like, that's going up on my wall. We have a poster out for, like this poster that's in the back here. We have a poster out for this, but I'm going to make a poster out of this. Awesome. You know, it's going to say something about rat problems or critter problems or something. And I'm thinking about pulling it up as some type of cottager and cat pest control. I'm just going to play with it.
I love it.
I can't wait to do it. This was a fabulous picture. And the one in the center with the cat who ate the world. Do you remember other choices for this picture in that story, or was this the one that was like in your head? This is the one we're going to do.
Well, I gave you options for other stories, but we both thought that this was definitely it. But yeah, there was options, but this is the one that I hoped you would pick, and you did. This is the one I love, and this is my favorite image from the book, entirely.
Really?
Oh yeah, this is it. By far, this is my favorite thing. I think it encompasses, to me, the ethos of the entire book. For me personally.
Say more about that, because that's really fascinating to hear that from you.
Well, I think what we have here is, again, we have something grotesque yet something sweet, right? There's an intimate nature to this, and we have this woman who clearly is caring for this cat, but her face is a little bit decrepit or mad or evil. And then we just sort of have the beauty of the outside, and I think that's what the book does. We have something wrong with it, we have something beautiful with it, we have something vintage with it, and I think that encompasses all of it. There's something nostalgic about it, while at the same time it should bother you, and yet it's so pretty that you want to look out the window. So all those divorces and disjointedness come together in one single image for me.
Wow, that's really okay. I'm just fell back in love with the whole book again. The beauty. It's a great book too. It's 5 by 5 by 8.5. When I originally hired you, we said we were going to do a 6 by 9 book.
6 by 9.
And then way too late in the process, I realized 6 by 9 was too much of was the wrong feel. I wanted something that looked like other readers for that age range. So we went by 5 by 5 by 8.5.
Right.
So you and Emily, through Albatross Design, fixed this book and just did a terrific job with it.
Thanks.
Making all that art fit in there and all the work you did on that. So I paid you, but I'm super grateful for the amount of work you put into this.
We're grateful for the trust.
It's really nice. So we have more stuff to do, but this turned out nice. And you did a lot of extra stuff in here with I'm trying to find a sample of one with the art. Things like adding the extra art to that. That's the ladder from Make the Kid House Pay.
Yep.
You added the extra art pieces to that, and really, I think you created a book through your formatting side of the work that you guys do. I think that you created a book that really, when a fifth grader picks this up, they kind of feel like it's the next level.
Awesome.
It's not a bright color book. It's not, but it feels like, okay, this kind of has that graphic novel influence to it.
Yeah. And I, at least when, like you're saying, that when I was a fifth grader, those are the books I was drawn to, was Goosebumps. It was a book that I could feel and touch, and there was something mysterious about it that made me want to buy it or hold on to it longer. And so I think we try to capture, at least on our end, a little bit of that Goosebumps essence, where it's like there's something more to this than simply a story.
When my now 30-year-old son was in 5th and 6th grade, he made it his point in his life to collect every Animorphs.
Oh,
yes.
The
Animorph series.
Oh, dude, do I know the Animorphs? All right. Yes.
Oh, sure you do. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
He had them all, and that to incite that level of devotion to a work is just amazing, because the Animorph stories aren't necessarily safe, but again, they're not the YA super violent. They're not the little children thing about, oh, if I could be a bee, but there's the kind of that next level, and I think that got captured in this, not only in the art but also well, the stories for sure. Harriet's work, terrific.
Yeah.
But also in the art and the formatting of this book. I think it just came together so very well.
Awesome.
So kind of wrapping this up a little bit, I want to ask you that kind of typical interview question. So if a young person wants to be an illustrator, what things should they do? But seriously, think about that for a moment. So if and I'm not just talking your average 13-year-old who likes to draw, fish or something, but the kid who's really kind of like, oh, kind of got a little push to like, I want to do more with this. What do you say for a kid like that?
I think first, on some hand, in some way, I think pursuing art purely for a career and I would say this differently if I was talking to a 13-year-old, but I think people will get where I'm going with this. But I'd say if you're pursuing this purely as a career, this may not be the road for you, because this is a very, very challenging road. But what I mean by that is it's pursuing the art versus pursuing the paycheck that I think is the most rewarding aspect of all of this. But that's one hand. Right. The other hand is, okay, how do we just practically do it? How do I love this so much. How do I just spend every waking moment doing this? I think you're able to do it now more than ever before. And I would say, first, draw like crazy. Like, you cannot stop drawing 5 pages a day. When I got into Watchmen 12 years ago, I set to myself to 5 pages a day. I got to do 5 a day, no matter what. I had to draw like crazy because I knew I wasn't as good as I wanted to be.
Right.
And I could tell that right away. Every time I drew something, I know what good is, and this isn't good yet. Beyond that, I would just say we have to utilize every aspect of technology we possibly can. And I think obviously Instagram is this unbelievable, it's got its own issues, but it's an unbelievable gallery. And more artists are getting work from Instagram and could survive off Instagram alone than ever before. So I'm trying to say that as draw like crazy, then expose your art as much as you possibly can. Get it out there as much as you possibly can. Get it in front of people. And don't be shy with it. Meaning, I was lucky enough to start taking my stuff to coffee shops, and my early work, coffee shops, then to galleries. Instagram wasn't around when I started. I went to galleries, and then from beyond there, I started writing, pushing it to publishers. So it's got to be this essence of you have to push yourself, and then you have to push your art out. So push yourself internally, push yourself to the page, and then you got to put the page out. And you have to find your circles of where that works. I know my art will fit in this gallery. And so I approached that gallery. That's what I did in Prescott, Arizona for years. I know my art will fit in this coffee shop, and I'm going to sell my art here. And I started to survive off of that. So it's knowing yourself well enough. It's knowing your geography well enough. It's knowing your art well enough. It's knowing your buyers well enough. And then you just got to hustle, hustle, hustle. It's nothing but hustling.
It's work. It's absolute work.
Yes.
And I know that that's a struggle for many artists that wanted to just fall together and, shouldn't have to struggle. Well, let me tell you something. The people who are digging ditches in 115 degrees outside are working.
Yeah.
And so should the rest of us.
Yes.
And if your thing is hustle and work, and your day, and I keep telling people, as an author and as an illustrator, your day job is marketing. Yeah. That's your day job.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough because you've worked your tail off to have an income, your day job always remains marketing.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm an artist. No, you're not. You're a marketer.
Yeah.
So you can grow all the art. You have to do that, everything you just said. But if you want to make a living at it, it's marketing. Right. You can do it without being salesy and glitchy and all that, but it's marketing. It really fascinating stuff. Do you remember what gallery you were in up in Prescott?
I was in a bunch of galleries, but the big one I was in that was pretty transformative for me in my career was Ian Russell. He's a big award-winning gallery artist himself and started his own gallery. There we go. Now we can see you.
Am I back again?
And now you're back. All right. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. So weird.
Ian Russell was my boy up there and really, really believed in me and gave me a huge start. And so I would not be where I am today without that guy. Thought my work, even my dark stuff, would sell the most. He really liked all my weird stuff. I did drunk Muppets and Eeyore, killing himself. Really, really dark, gross stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and he could sell it. He hustled for me. He would sell it for me. Obviously for himself, for his gallery, but that's
of course, right.
Yeah, that's where I was at for a long time.
Wow, good. All right, so in a minute, I'm going to ask you to kind of talk about, wrap up thoughts about anything, this project perhaps with 15 pounds of muscle and bounce, or just wherever you want to go. But let's pay the bills for a moment. A couple of things for those of you who are watching from the Small Tooth Dog Publishing Group. Some things that we offer to assist you in the way that you are moving forward as an author and as an artist. One of them is authortip.com, and we have a free publishing checklist. It's called Are You Ready for Publishing? I encounter a lot of people who tell me they want to write a book, and then I ask them if they've written anything, and they say no. So the first thing is write. It's on the checklist, write. So if you go to authortip.com, that'll put you into our system, get you into our email list, and we do regular training kind of things that come out in the email. So be part of that. If you are ready for a much deeper dive, if you're really to look at how does your art form make an impact on the world, how do you impact the people you want, you can go to Speaker 100 and take that masterclass if you want. If you're just kind of getting started, authortip.com is the place to kind of start digging around with us. But then Speaker 100 is the much more complicated one. The fun stuff is this. Michelle, who is also the owner of the Small Tooth Dog Publishing Company, is a artist in her own right and has illustrated a number of books. She has a design that she put together for the Tucson Festival of Books, which has an animal each year. This year it's an owl. So the lino cut that she did, these are hand printed shirts. The lino cut that she did this year is the burrowing owl from Arizona, which in the place where we live in Arizona used to be very, very common, and we don't see them as much anymore. So if you would like to enter the drawing for a free shirt, you go to smalltoothdog.com/drawing, smalltoothdog.com/drawing. You put your name and your email address in there, and then tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Sunday time, we will draw at least 6 names, and you'll get a code that's only for you, your code, to get your shirt, to order one of the shirts from Small Tooth Dog at no charge for you. So that is Michelle's work. These are hand-printed lino cuts, so that is one of the drawings from all of this. All right, my friend, what's the last thought on your mind?
I think it's the last thought on my mind, as you were saying, is probably explaining some of the darker elements of what we were talking about. I was thinking how good it is for children if we could just remember to be exposed. And I was actually thinking of G.K. Chesterton's famous quote, if you remember, that what's the whole thing? It's not about dragons and stories. But the whole point of this is about dragons being beaten in stories.
Right.
So we're not drawing darkness just for darkness' sake. We're talking about the light and overcoming it. And so I just constantly think about my 10-year-old self reading Goosebumps or Animorphs or what we're doing here and now. I was struck with a thought of the importance and how it's been from Grimm fairy tales to Voldemort to Smog to whatever else to now, of really allowing our children to get into this stuff again, not for the sake of darkness itself or evil itself, but to see the hero and see how they can overcome. And I think the story is filled with a lot of beautiful light in that sense. There's a lot of exposing it. It's really fun, and it has some fun elements to it, but at the same time, just the importance of that in illustration and storytelling, in publishing, in books. So that was my final thought as you were talking.
Yep. And as someone who's made his living in that world, that fairy tale world, and have been uninvited to schools because I dared tell stories that were truer to form.
Right.
It's like Chesterton's quote is, and it may or may not be, the whole thing may not be his, but the idea is that, we don't tell that dragons are real, but that dragons can be beaten, that dragons can be defeated. Powerful stuff. Children, especially in hearing stories, children put the images in their head that they're ready for, especially hearing stories. So for little kids, we don't necessarily put the darker images in front of them when they're small. Right. But as they get older, and I think as they hit the abstract thinking levels, which is about 5th grade and things like that, we can start to say, here's an interpretation.
Right.
And I think that you've done that so very well in 15 Pounds of Muscle and Bounce.
Oh, thank you.
So it turned out terrific. So if you're interested in picking a copy of that, muscleandbounce.com, come to Small Tooth Dog. Don't forget to get yourself into the drawing too. So if you put your name in once, all 6 drawings you'll be connected with. So smalltoothdog.com/drawing for that as well. Mr. Casey, don't leave yet, but I'm going to go ahead and conclude this for the masses. All right. Hey, folks, we're going to see you at the next event, which is coming up at 1 p.m., where Laura and I will talk about how the oral storytelling tradition can inform your writing. Thanks for watching what we do. Like, share, how to do all this. All right. Talk to you in a while. Good.
Thank you.